Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to the second round of the RWSN Annual Meeting. My name is Aline Saraiva Okello, and I work with the Secretariat of RWSN. So welcome. We're just getting started now. So I'd like to cover very quickly the agenda for today. So first, we'll have opening remarks by the chair of the RWSN Executive Committee, Dr. James Origa from the World Bank. We'll have a small segment remembering Eric Bowman, who was the founder of RWSN. And then we'll have a small section of network updates by myself and Sean Fury. And then, so this will be the first 30 minutes of the meeting today. And then we'll move to the members forum. So we'll hear from 3 teams this afternoon for me. So first, it will be Leave No One Behind. The team leaders will make a presentation giving an update of the activities of 2025, plans for 2026, and you'll have the opportunity to engage with team leaders. Then we'll hear from Sustainable Groundwater Development team. And finally, we'll hear from Sustainable Services team. And we'll have closing remarks by our chair once again. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. James Origa. Next slide. Dr. James Otieno Origa is the Executive Committee Chair and is a water supply specialist at the World Bank. Dr. James, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aline. Can you all hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, colleagues. Welcome all to this annual meeting. I first want to really appreciate you taking your time to join this, just reflect on the year. I'm pleased to make these opening remarks just to get the meeting started. I mean, in terms of my opening remarks, just to welcome you, I want to point out, like 5 specific issues. First is just reflecting on how the year has been. The year began with, we all know, the shock of USID being, removed from the surface of the earth. The impact it had for the network itself, the Real Water Project. And I know many of you from the different organizations that were executing different USID programs. Many are impacted. But I want to appreciate that, a lot of the organizations, despite still limping a bit, I know quite a number who are still limping a bit. I think people have responded with a renewed commitment and really amazing levels of adaptability. And that just highlights, your ability as organizations, as individuals, to overcome adversity and stay committed to the cost of, strengthening the systems that ensure sustainable raw water supply. So, I mean, some of the other issues that, reflecting on the year that we've seen strengthening our governance and collaboration. One of the things that we did is to review and update, the network's governance protocols. Now it's presented and packaged at RWSN handbook. If you haven't, gone through it, read it, I'd kindly request that you do so. I think Batima can put a link to it in the charts there if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that. We've had several, from a governance and coordination perspective, several quarterly theme leaders meetings, biannual executive committee meetings, and then all this just to show progress in our accountability and the coordinated teamwork of the network. The other issue I would like to highlight is the network's championing inclusion and professional growth. Some of you have attended. If you didn't have a chance to attend, you can get the recordings where they were recorded. We hosted career days, women in wash programming, mentoring program in partnership with Agenda for Change, Global Water Center, and World Vision. The network has really put in a lot of steps to advance gender equity and supported emerging professionals just to demonstrate the network's commitment to diversity and capacity building, because the network is its people, right? So a core commitment to inclusion and professional growth of all the members of the network. From a knowledge sharing and sector leadership perspective, you're familiar with the over 10 seminars that have been delivered this year, bringing, for example, the bridging engineering and systems thinking, professionalized borehole drilling. The secretariat had shared different sector updates, monthly newsletters. The secretariats have been actively, and some of you, the members, actively participating in different conferences, AFWASA, the World Water Week, UN Water, all these kind of positions. The network is a global convener and knowledge hub, which substantially is our core mandate, bridging all the being a bridge to bring all the knowledge from the different practices from all corners of the world. The program on stopping the rot projects, which aims to tackle early erosion in boreholes and hand pumps, the Stronger Together Coalition, with the grant from the Hilton Foundation supporting women networks in Washer, BGR partnership and advancing groundwater advocacy in Africa. These are some of the flagship initiatives and impact that we've seen across the year. And just to sort of conclude my opening remarks, those who know me and my engagement in LinkedIn, sometimes I have some provocative images. Like there's this one particular image. If you can show the next, let me just see. Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring. Sometimes back, I sort of brought this image out. There are a lot of people who are not very happy, but those who are not familiar with it, just a background. This is one community somewhere in northern Kenya. I went to this community as part of our work in raw water supply, and there were like 22 individual notice boards of different organizations doing different things on the same borehole, in the same community at different times of the year. This organization comes, put his big signpost, the pump breaks down, another one comes next week. And sort of to me, this sort of highlights, embodies the raison d'etre, the existence of why we need this network. And I'm happy that over the year, a lot of the webinars and the engagement we've had over the year have really progressed in advancing our aspiration to promote a duty of care mindset, focusing on how do we embed sustainability in what we do, empowering local communities and local government authorities. Because if you have our interventions designed in a way that sustainability is embedded in it, and there's a direct, deliberate effort to empower local communities and authorities, I highly doubt that we're going to have a situation like this where we have different 19 organizations who, for the most part, are all members of the same network, each erecting a big signpost of the small part of thing they're doing in this particular community. So to me, I'm pleased to see over this year a lot of the knowledge products, the mentorship activities, all sorts of contribute to this aspiration where we act with a duty of care in what we do in a highly professional manner, depending on the knowledge generated from the different parts of the world. So I looking forward, into the next year and the future to come. This is my desire, as chair of the executive committee, and I believe it's your sort of commitment, different partners in the network, to act in a way that we don't do this. That the only signpost we see in this community is the local government, water utility, or local government water department, who is empowered to do all these things on their own, rather than each person coming to do their own things in a different way that negates or doesn't align with the other person who was there. So let me pause at that particular moment, and just before I end, to request Sean, uh, we want to remember Eric Bowman, who was the founder of the network, who passed on this year. So let me invite Sean to just speak to us a bit about Eric Bowman and the impact he's had on the network, and the things that we pick from his life that we hold on to, and to determine our practice going into the future. Over to you, Sean. Thanks.
Great, thank you, James, and thank you again for your leadership of the network over the last year since becoming chair last August. So, hello everyone. Welcome to part two of the RWSN annual meeting. Before we get going, I just want to take a moment to remember the life of Eric Bauman, who is the founder of the Rural Water Supply Network. Eric was born in 1944 in Switzerland and was an agricultural engineer working on tractors originally, but went out to Bangladesh and was working on tractors there until he got drafted into supporting UNICEF with some questions around hand pumps that they were working on at the time, trying to improve the reliability and sustainability of hand pumps there. And then that led to conversations in a relationship, lifelong relationship with UNICEF and the World Bank, that led in 1992 to the creation of the Hand Pump Technology Network, which was a small group of people brought together around a common cause of trying to improve the standardization of hand pump technology. Standardization in terms of the design itself. So his major contributions to the sector, to the lives of millions of people, was the codification of designs of the Afridev, the India Mark II, the Tara, many other hand pumps that we know and have been manufactured to the specifications defined in the drawings and the documents developed by Eric and Carl Erf. Then the second part of his contribution was to work alongside governments on standardization policies, because before hand pump standardization policies, many countries, including Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, and elsewhere, would have a dozen different hand pump types. Each NGO, each organization, each donor, maybe some locally developed ones as well, that would end up with this plethora of different pump types that were all incompatible with each other, all required different spare parts and all the rest of it. So working with the government so that they would have policies saying, right, we're going to have these different hand pump types for different conditions, and comply with this, then we can get the supply chains, get the skills to be more rational and to actually work. And so that has been a very long-lasting legacy. He also led the evolution of several organizations. So in the mid-2000s of the Hand Pump Technology Network, which was focusing very much on the pump design, but realizing that the issues went way beyond the pump, to the borehole. How well is the borehole being drilled? How well is the operation and maintenance? All those kind of issues, sort of who's actually paying for this, is because it's the realization that yes, organizations and governments are paying for water supplies, but so are a lot of households. And this concept of self-supply was introduced to the network. So that's why in the mid-2000s, the network broadened out to become RWSN and the network we became today. And so he retired from RWSN and from SCAT in 2009, handed over to Kirsten Dannett, who many of you will know, and then I came in 2011. And so I didn't overlap with him at the time, but I did have the pleasure of doing a hand pump course with him in Vienna in 2012, which was where I got to spend most time with him. And he's incredibly funny, generous, lovely, a real leader in a quiet kind of way, not a big charismatic big speaker, but just very, very attention to detail, very aware of people around him, and very much taking people with him when trying to change organizations. Because the other organization that he led was SCAT itself. SCAT, for those that don't know, started as the Swiss Centre for Appropriate Technology in 1978, associated with the University of St. Gallen, and it was a Verein. It was a non-profit. It with funding difficulties in the mid-90s, he, as managing director, transformed SCAT into SCAT Consulting Limited, which is still today a very successful consulting company. And in 2002, led the development of the creation of SCAT Foundation, the host of of RWSN. So that's where we are today. And it's through thanks to him that we have the network that we have today. So I owe him a lot, and we all owe him a lot. So if you want to know more, there's links to some of his work, and also if you want to leave a message for family. Let's now move on to the present day and to talk about some of the highlights from this year. We've been busy, as we've already heard. The year started with a bang, and not a bang in a good way. So how have we progressed? Well, we could only progress because we've got a fantastic team in the Executive Steering Committee. We're named here with James and Emmanuel leading that committee, but also we've got Ramon on the line as well. And it's through this team and this partnership that we're robust and resilient, and that's great, and that's how it should be. So thank you to all of our executive members as individuals and organizations. And then the real engine of the network is the theme leaders, because they're the people with the energy, the ideas, the contacts. They bring so much in, and they drive so much, and we just kind of help to give them the platform to make the magic happen. So huge appreciation to all of them. And appreciation to my colleagues, Aline and Fatima, who you all know, but also my colleagues here at SCAP Foundation, Valerie and Andrea and Angelica, who work so hard to keep the show on the road. Now I'd like to hand over to Aline to take us through our webinars this year.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean. So just like to go a little bit more into detail into the highlights of 2025. So this year we have hosted 2 webinar series. The first one between April and June had 6 webinars in English and French. We had over 1,100 participants from 105 countries and 40 speakers from the 6 continents of the world. So thank you so much. And then on the late webinar series, we are hosting 4 webinars. We hosted already 3, and the next one will be happening next week. We are hosting now the annual meeting, and we have had over 1,600 participants registered on the webinar so far. We're still counting this number because of the last webinar, and 685 attendees on the first 3 webinars. So next slide. Next, yes. So this is just to appreciate and thank all the speakers. So you can see here from our early webinar series, all the speakers and team leaders that curated this amazing selection of webinars about driving rural water performance, groundwater. We had the Stop the Rot webinar of the early series, self-supply, Muse, and Data for Action teams also sharing their latest trends and updates. Next. Thank you to the speakers of the late webinar series. We had the webinar of the Leave No One Behind team, the collaboration we do with Agenda for Change, and a webinar on drilling. So you'll hear more of these webinars later on the teams that are presenting on this second part of the annual meeting. Next. I just wanted to remind you, so for the next week, 9 of December, we have the final webinar of this series. So we already have the lineup of speakers here on the slide for you. So great presentations and great discussion in store. Please sign up if you have not done so yet. Next. And then another update we wanted to share, we run again this year our mentoring program in collaboration with Women in WASH program from Agenda for Change. This year we have hit new records. We had 488 participants from 81 countries, and 60% of them identified as women. This year's edition was also with support of World Vision and Global Water Center, and we had 3 different learning tracks: the Women in WASH track that is led by Agenda for Change, the RWSN Career Progression track, which was led by ourselves, and also the Solar-Powered Water Systems track, which was a specific track for alumni of solar pumping courses of the Global Water Center, also managed within the same program. Some highlights in terms of impact. We had a very good engagement, very high engagement, with over 33% of matches meeting over 6 times during the mentoring program, the 6 months period, and with very good ratings as well. And this year we piloted the use of WhatsApp group for managing communications with them, and that also had a very good response on our final survey. So you can read more about these details on the report of the mentoring program, which is already available on our website. Next. Over to you, Sean.
Great. In terms of projects and partnerships this year, so as mentioned, this year started with not in a great way, with the cancellation of Real Water, which was a frustration. But there's Stop the Rot Phase 3 is continuing this on the hand pump corrosion. We'll hear a bit more about this. So that's going really well and continues until June 2027. We're really grateful to BGR, and we'll hear from Ramon later for a grant for support to the Sustainable Groundwater Development theme. And through that, we've been doing a whole range of activities through the network, not least as well as some of the core functions of the network and the theme. We've been also supporting the Africa Groundwater Network's advocacy towards the Africa Water Vision, so that groundwater gets a prominent position in that. So that's a great achievement by them and Dr. Caliste Tindamagayo in particular. We had a groundwater gathering in Stockholm, bringing together people who are interested in groundwater, and we have ongoing a study of drilling associations, and it's a learning by doing study. So we now have a very active WhatsApp group, very active, of drillers sharing videos of the boreholes they're digging or drilling, and some great polls, and it's a really active community, which is great. So and evolving all the time. We're also doing a small piece of work as part of the WASH Systems for Health program to develop a learning note on joint sector reviews and WASH sector coordination. So that's exciting. And also looking forward to next year, that we've absolutely delighted that to announce that we have financial support from the Osprey Foundation. So huge thanks to them for believing in what we're doing, and that's really appreciated. And also appreciated to the Conrad and Hilton Foundation, that through the grants that we've got as for Stronger Together, it's enabling us to continue the mentoring scheme for at least the next 2 years. So that's wonderful. So the year started not great, but over the course of this year, things have really improved, and that shows the power of the network and people collaborating together. When we look forward to next year and some of the highlights and activities that we've got planned, there's the All Systems Symposium being organised by the One for All Alliance in Rwanda in July. So we're very much looking forward to that event, and welcome any ideas on how best we create a space there for face-to-face engagement there. But the new partnership that we've been developing over the course of this year, as we've been rethinking the future of RWSN and the business model of RWSN, is that reaching out to the Alliance for Rural Electrification, because we've realised that there is strong parallels between rural water and rural electricity. And so we're delighted that with their upcoming Energy Access Investment Forum in 2026 in Nairobi in April, we're currently working out an agreement with them for collaboration around that. And so anyone that's doing water and energy projects or is interested in maybe pitching to funders in the rural electrification space, because there's going to be it's a different world to WASH, and we're trying to break that silo and break into a new silo and really make our members, you guys, known to the rural electrification community, because a lot of them are doing solar pumping, a lot of them are doing mini grid systems that have connections to water. So please, if you're interested in that, please get in touch. So we'll have more mentoring, and we'll also be doing a member survey, because we want to hear from you. What can we do? How are you using the network? What are you getting from it? And what can we do better or differently in the future? Stop the Rot, just to flag that we've now at this stage where after some really rigorous research, and there's still a bit of research going on into some of the chemistry of corrosion, and that now there's a suite of guidance available to help you and to help your partners make sure that the systems that are being installed are corrosion resistant, that the quality control is being done. And this is, although it's mainly about hand pumps, it's much bigger than hand pumps. It's also about the quality control of all hardware and the care that needs to be taken into that. So please do look that up. And now I'm going to throw the ball back to Aline to talk about Stronger Together.
Yes, we're running out of time, so I'll just go very briefly. I think Sean had already mentioned that we received this grant from the Hilton Foundation to support women's networks. If you move to the next slide, Sean. Yes, the mission of Stronger Together is to unite like-minded networks and organizations with the ultimate goal of empowering women professionals working in challenges that are related to water resources and water sanitation hygiene systems, and to be change makers and leaders globally, regionally, and locally. So you can hear more of the Stronger Together coalition on the links that will be shared, and also on our websites and newsletters. We share mostly about events that are organized under the Stronger Together coalition umbrella. Next. Just wanted to share a little bit more highlights from events that we have co-hosted this year. Yes, next again. Yeah, so first, in collaboration also with Community of Women in Water and Agenda for Change, we hosted from 4 to 6 of March the Water and Wash Career Days. So it was a series of 7 virtual sessions with over 700 participants across the 3 days, and the 3 main topics. If you can move to the next slide. So we talked about starting and shifting your career, how to get funding, and peer learning. So thank you very much to all the speakers that contributed to this series. And if you have missed this, we have our Water and Wash Career Days playlist. The link is on the slide and will be shared on the chat box as well. So please feel free to revisit it. Next slide. We also attended the AFWASA conference in Kampala in February this year. So we were able to meet with several partners of RWSN, members of the executive committee, and also some of our team leaders there. And we worked on the new collaborations, especially with the AFWASA team and the various partners that we met in Kampala. So we have some highlights of this also back on our communications in March. Next. already Sean mentioned a bit, RWSN was also present at World Water Week. So we hosted the groundwater meeting that Sean mentioned together with BGR, and we co-hosted 3 other sessions. So one with Water Mission on carbon financing, the next one we had with Agenda for Change on climate resilience WASH, and we co-hosted the Women's Mingle under the Stronger Together umbrella. And we also able to celebrate the signing of the MOU with the Women in Water Diplomacy Network, which allows us to work in some collaborative projects with them. And we met several other partners. So thank you very much for all that engaged with us on the World Water Week. We had a big summary of this on our September update, monthly update. Next. In terms of updates in publications and the website, we had our annual report published back in June this year. The Muse team leaders have just published a publication, Water for Life, which they talked about on the round 1. So if you want to hear more about this publication, please do watch the recording of round 1 of the annual meeting, and we will share the links also on the chat box. And we have been working also on continued upgrades to our website. Next. We have had a lot of activity on our blog this year. First, a partnership with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. We've had a blog series, 1 blog a month on pastoralists and water. So it's a great series for those that want to learn more about the intersections of pastoralists and their needs in terms of water. We also had a lot of guest blogs by some of our team leaders and partners. I think you'll hear some of them from the Leave No One Behind team leader in Frisia, for example, and the team leaders of sustainable services that are in attendance in this meeting. Next. Other activities, we have been engaging with the UN Water, particularly on the Innovation Task Group and on the World Water Development Report process. We hosted a member organization event focused on financial viability and business models back in August. We have been sending our monthly updates in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we continue to grow our presence on our social media, particularly LinkedIn has been still the strongest. So thank you very much for your engagement. And I think I end over here back. Oh, sorry. One more big thank you to our member organizations. The silver category are the ones that have been contributing financially to the network. So thank you very much for your support. We really, really appreciate you. And would like to encourage other member organizations to also step up and support, especially on these transitional times that funding has been so difficult for everyone. So when we pull resources together, we can definitely push much further. So we are eating into the time of Leave No One Behind. So I think I would like to invite now our Leave No One Behind team leaders. I think Sandra will be presenting. Sean, sorry. Just stop sharing and share. Yeah.
Yes,
Sandra.
thank you, Lynn. Let me start. Well, the PowerPoint hopefully comes.
Yes.
The next, I think 30 or 25 minutes, we will use to share more about what we have been doing as the Leave No One Behind team and also our plans for next year. And we are a team of 4 team leads. So it's me together with Euphrasia Luseka, Temple Oriaki, and Amita Bhakta. So now we can see the nice pictures. And actually, we want to start with some poll questions to kind of set the scene and to also see how much you know on our topic of leaving one behind. So you can now see the poll on your screen. We have 4 questions, and all questions you can choose one answer. So the first question is, since 2020, official development assistance for water and sanitation has increased significantly, or stayed the same, or declined by nearly 10%, or doubled. So pick your answer here. The second question is, by 2030, how many people could be displaced globally due to water scarcity? So here again, there are 4 options. So the first one is 70 million, or is it 700 million, or 7 million, or 7 billion. Again, you can choose one answer. The third question is, which group spends an estimate of 200 million hours daily collecting water? Is it men in rural areas, women and girls, refugees, or children under 5? And the last question is, what percentage of climate disasters are water related? So here you can choose between 30%, 50%, 70%, or 90%. So yeah, curious to see your answers. I will give you, I think, a few seconds to our answers coming in. Aline, can you see that?
Yes, we are at 45% now, so maybe just a few more seconds.
A few more seconds for the answers. It's good to get some input from you. So it's not only listening, but you also want to see what you know.
Yeah, I think we had 60%, so I think we can.
Okay, you can show it in
Yeah.
light of time.
Yes.
So let me also quickly explain the answers. Yeah, so the first question, the correct answer, it's, yeah, 56% has correct. It declined by nearly 10%. Although we need a rise to actually achieve the SDG 6. So yeah, we already mentioned that USAID had disappeared. There are many reasons for that, unfortunately. So we need to continue to lobby for that. The second question, the right answer is 700 million people are displaced by water scarcity, which also most people had correct, 44%. And actually, the most vulnerable are actually most affected by this change. So it also need for us to work on this. The third question, yeah, that one almost everybody had correct. It's women and girls, of course, who are mostly yeah, have the burden of fetching water, which also affect their ability to economic options, to go to school. So, and this is reinforcing the gender inequalities. And the final question, that's where we have some wrong answers. The correct answer is actually 90%. So only 30% of people had this correctly. So we have data from UNDRR that 90% of climate disasters are linked to water. So think of floods, droughts, and storms. And again, here, vulnerable communities are more affected. And you can see it in the news now. I think what's happening in Asia with the flooding. So it is, yeah, it is real. Thanks for all your answers. And hereby, I'm handing over the floor to Euphrasia to share more from our team.
Thank you very much, Sandra. My name is Euphrasia Luseka. I'm part of I'm a co-thematic lead on the LNOB team coming from Kenya, and I'm very happy to take you through the work that we have been able to do for 2025. Just picking up from the data that Sandra has been able to share, indeed, this is why Leave No One Behind theme is existing. And it's so crucial, especially at this moment and juncture that we're in the predicament, I would say a predicament in the water sector at the moment. So indeed, Leave No One Behind is coming in to strengthen the foundation for equitable and inclusive rural water services. And this is mainly through open dialogue, through evidence-based learning, collaboration around practical barriers that prevent universal access to safe water. So we are working with very many people. We are working with practitioners. We are working with policymakers. We are working with communities to be able to navigate all these issues that have been raised by Sandra and the rest that are appearing on the slides. And this is mainly to be able to translate the human rights commitments into achievable and actually contextualized progress. Move to the next slide, please, Batima. And 2025 has been quite a lot. As Sean was speaking, was trying to come up with a timeline of what has happened, especially on the issue to do with the human right to water. ever since it was declared in 2010. In 2015, you're going to note that we had a very good leverage coming in through the SDGs. We had a principle of leave no one behind now being part of the process of attaining SDGs, all of them totally. And then now in 2025, it feels like the efforts that we made between 2015, when the leave no one behind principle was coming in strongly to support us to be able to make these rights to be a reality, it feels like we are kind of being taken back in a way. We're having challenges with regards to the shifting geopolitics. We're having a reduction in the official development assistance. We're having the economic pressures, the climate change issues, the shrinking civil society, a space that was again clearly demonstrated during COP30, amongst other issues that are making the human right to water a focus and a focus on reducing exclusion to be more urgent than ever. So I wouldn't say that we're having a bigger problem at the moment, but we are really seeing why we need to put the human rights agenda at the center stage of what we need to continue working on as a sector. So indeed, RWSN's work provided a critical anchor for understanding who was being pushed further behind how we can be able to respond to these issues. So we did not relent, we did not get scared, but indeed we just decided, let us continue, let us reformulate our work plan, and let us continue pushing forward, hopefully. Next slide. And these are the activities that we were able to work on. I'll start with the publications and the case stories. We were very honored to participate in the UN World Water Development Report for 2026. And we provided various case studies, including a bit on the policy agenda. Besides that, we also have a brief that is currently ongoing on incontinence and rural water supply. All these are going to be unveiled in 2026. We also were honored to participate in a research and assessment activity, which is a Delphi principle. And this was with a team from University of Leeds, FCDO team, as well as IRC and various other experts. Still to be done, and what we had planned for earlier was on mapping young water professionals globally, not just probably in one region, but globally. And this is an activity that is going on. Next slide. We also came up with learning resources. This was a learning brief that was targeting gender equity as well as social inclusion in WASH systems, being currently anchored by the IRC team. There's a whole online course there, and if any of you is interested in participating in the same, it is actually quite comprehensive. Please do so. It moves beyond the issue to do with WASH and gender, but it gets into detail on issues to do with equity as well as social inclusion. Then again, we participated in the webinars that were shared earlier. Besides the webinars that were shared earlier by Aline, we also had a participation in WASH Talk. It was a virtual panel on global dynamics that are disrupting WASH programming at the moment. So we were able to again come in to tackle the issues of financing in WASH and the move that happened earlier in the year. And the talk itself, it was titled Poop, Politics and Pivots. Quite interesting with the WASH Canada team, and it was a panel of only women, by the way, so it was quite an interesting one, and it again supported to give a picture of what you're expecting to see in the rest of the year in the sector, which actually has been able to come through, I would say, by around 90% of predictions. Then again, we had planned to have a webinar with media entities that you're planning to work on in 2026. Unfortunately, we couldn't be able to do it in 2025. Move forward, please. We also did several blogs that were shared earlier, and we're also very honored to share a tribute to Katarina of Sanitation and Water for All. She was part of the team that really lobbied hard alongside the RWSN experts to come up with the human right to water resolution back in 2010. So it was quite important for us to be able to honor her work because again, we're anchoring a lot of our progress and everything else that you're doing from people who were very strong, bold, at the same time, very progressive and relentless in supporting such a global agenda. Again, we were also happy to participate in conferences as well as congresses, the Stockholm Water Week, UN Habitat GWOPA 6th Congress, as well as an X-Space event with a civil society group. We had around 800 listeners, and this was during the International Women's Day. I would also like to mention on the UN Habitat activity that we were able to show that whole demonstration and linkage of that we are not working in silos as teams. We were able to support GWOPA with the rural water agenda with regards to water operation partnerships. Besides that, also the agenda of rural water regulation under the call of water regulation by International Water Association, as well as World Health Organization. So we were able to tackle the two very well and show again, demonstrate how we are not working in silos as much. And this again shows, it's more linked to the activities on sustainable services team. Move forward. We also had some online, we also had partnerships and collaborations that you can be able to witness there. One of them that is quite a major highlight for us is definitely coming up with the first African Women in Water Awards with AFWASA team, and also supporting WaterAid with activities on just water partnerships. These are all ongoing at the moment, and they are forming up more activities in 2026. And also we were able to work on a podcast with the RSC team, FCDO team on realizing the human right to water and sanitation. Quite an interesting compilation there from various experts all over the world. So please do have a listen as well. Move forward. So for 2026, I think we'll continue with the same momentum. Yes, 2025 was a year that felt like people would not be working on a lot of activities, but I think for LNOB, we really came out and did a lot on the same. And in 2026, we want to continue with the same momentum. We want to target the issues to do with youth and gender inclusion. We want to continue working on issues to do with climate change adaptation. And I want to quote what again Sean said that about Eric Bowman. He said that Eric took people with him. So on these slides, as he continues speaking, this is the point where we want to remind you that we want to take you with us in 2026. Kindly look at the activities that we are proposing here, and please feel free to reach all of us to be able to collaborate and attain the same. Move to the next slide, Batima. Also on issues to do with right-based approaches activities, we want to have the webinar on media, as we had talked about. Another key issue that is coming out strongly in 2025 has been the issue of water workers' rights. And this is going beyond the heavy discussion that we've had on sanitation issues and the dignity of the workers. But we want to really center the role of workers, the people who are pushing the agenda on safe water access. So we have had a lot of requests from most trade unions and water workers associations along across the world. So we want to give them that platform and opportunity to be able to discuss the same, as well as the media. The 16 days of gender-based violence is currently ongoing, and we are coming up with an article alongside a FWASA team as well and AMCAO on the leadership in Africa and the women on addressing the issue. Knowledge and innovation, we have already been able to state these activities under the publications and the blogs that were shared earlier, so I'd skip the same. Please move forward. Continuing with the global engagement activities, as well as we also want to continue with disruptive communication and advocacy with regards to social media campaigns, interactive webinars, the storytelling, and all. Next. So I would like to welcome Sandra back and Temple on the Q&A session. And again, if you want to continue interacting with us, kindly feel free to do so through that link. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and good to connect with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good, awesome. So I'm Temple Oreki, and one of the co-leads of the Leave No One Behind team, joining in from Nigeria. Looking at the presentations and the updates on what the LNOB has been doing so far in this year and what we plan to do next year, I'm quite certain that there are several places where, as a key stakeholder in the sector, you would want to be part of, make contributions, and just like Euphrasia mentioned, any of the proposed activities where you feel or think you would be interested in contributing, it would be good to also get to hear from you, and so we can definitely work together and not leave anyone behind. For questions, I'm looking at the chat box for questions. Why that is going on. Prior to why we were registering for this session, there were questions that we were given the opportunity to ask questions. And some of the questions that were asked actually bordered on three main things. One was bordered on financing, sustainable financing for the sector. Another key area that was also pointed out in terms of the questions that were asked was on practical implementation and monitoring. And finally, someone also asked questions surrounding vulnerable groups and how we know who has been left behind. Now, on this, I guess some of the questions have already been answered, especially on the issue of financing and sustainability, where the poll made mention of the reduction or the decline in ODA that we've seen across the globe. USAID being one of the critical or key examples of such a decline in financing and funding. Now, in
Sorry,
terms of
Temple, we have a raised hand. Maybe shall we take the live questions first before we go
yes,
into...
please, if we have live questions, that would be
Yes,
perfect. Yeah.
yes. Henk?
Yes, hello. I had a question on the efficiency of the activities. And I wondered if water quality should not become a focus on water quality. I'm talking on water, not on sanitation this time. We have increasingly evidence that with a one-time subsidy for good hardware and combination of hygiene, education, safe water, sustainable safe drinking water is possible for a one-time subsidy of $4 per person. So my question is it not an idea to, with the limited funds that there is still, to focus on water safety, so at least everybody has safe drinking water? That's my question.
I think we got also a question from Charles. Do you want to take the second question and then we answer?
Yes, go ahead, please. Let's Charles.
Please, we cannot hear you.
No, we still don't hear you.
You're on mute, Charles.
Charles, maybe put your question on the chat box because we cannot hear
I think
you.
he did.
Oh, okay.
So, Charles, we can still not hear you, unfortunately, but I think you put your question in the chat box. So how much money is wasted because of poor design, construction, and quality of materials combined with replication of work?
Okay. So I think those are the two questions we have so far.
Yes.
I can see Fatima's hand is also up. I don't know if this is an old hand or a new one. Fatima, if you can hear us, you
Yeah,
can speak.
I wanted to ask, okay, So in facilitating access to water supply, especially in rural areas, do we also try to leverage groundwater sources? How much priority is given to leveraging groundwater sources rather than surface water, considering how easier it is to maybe facilitate the cleanliness of groundwater or the purity compared to surface water? Like having it being a major source of water supply to rural areas, especially across deprived countries.
Did you get the question, Euphrasia or Sandra?
The last one?
Yeah, the last one on
Yeah,
groundwater surface.
yeah. So on if there's a focus on groundwater over surface water, but maybe we're not the right group to answer that.
Okay, okay.
Is
So
the
yeah,
answer the
so
groundwater?
I would respond to the first question on water safety and water quality. So in terms of, I'm sure we have the water quality working group within the RWSN. I'm sure they are also in the best position to answer this question. But from our end, in terms of leave no one behind, and in terms of human rights, implementing the human rights based approach to ensuring people get access to water. Our call within the team has always been the fact that we don't want to, water supply is not just water supply if we're not considering the quality of the water that is being supplied. And so for every advocacy, for every policy that has to do with leaving no one behind, one of the key things that is being incorporated there is the water safety plan, which is also something that is key to ensuring that the quality of water that is being given out to people are not causing further damage to their health. And so for water supply across board, uh, like I mentioned, it's something that we should continuously across all teams, not just the Leave No One Behind team. It's something that we should continuously work together on to ensure that our water supply is not just being looked at making water available without considering the quality of the water that is being supplied. So yes, uh, Hank, we are not just focusing on household water treatment. We are focusing on general water supply and the quality of the water being supplied, either at home or either at various other places where there is need for clean drinking water. Not to forget that the human rights to water made emphasis on is actually focused on clean drinking water. So access to clean drinking water is a fundamental human right. It didn't say access to water, that it was very specific, access to clean drinking water. And so that is on that basis, that's is on that basis that we are working as Leave No One Behind to ensure that that right is being fulfilled. The second question is bordered on how much is being wasted on poor design. Euphrasia, Sandra, do you have a response to that? We have just 1 minute left.
I can try to quickly respond to his question. Generally, I would say, I mean, I don't think there's a single reliable global number for money wasted because of poor design, construction, and quality of materials. And if there's any, we would be very happy to hear from the participants as well. But what I am aware of, and I've also been able to document on RWSN blogs, is countries, for instance, my country in Kenya, we have seen it reporting that public water companies are losing even around 120 to around $130 million per year because of water that is produced but is not billed. And this has even gone on to various countries across the world. What, for me, I feel again strongly is that The reason why it's a little bit difficult to estimate the full amount of a full amount globally, whether it's even regionally and all, I would say again, it's because of heterogeneity of water systems. They are not the same. At the same time, we have multiple causes of waste. We don't have proper data at the moment. And again, we have a lot of underreporting that goes on. The time dimension also with regards to replication. And we have also been able to see the same from what our chairperson, Engineer James, has been able to share as an example. So I am not sure if we have that at the moment. We probably have estimates, but again, I think it's a whole good statistic for us to be able to be aware of, especially for rural water supplies, because that is where the heaviest waste is going on from even the evidence that Engineer James was able to share. Thank you.
Yeah, and finally on the groundwater sources, Sandra, any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think here again it's really context specific on like in every country, every region has different water sources. So in one country you might be able to lean more towards the groundwater source. In other countries you have more surface water. So I think here there's no one size fits all. And I think it's good to really know what is available, what is needed, and know who's left behind and how can you reach them. So I hope it answers a little bit, but I think there's also a groundwater group who can share more around that. And I think our time is up. So Henk, I see your hand is up, but if you have a follow-up question, put it in the chat box and we can continue a discussion there. So that we hand over the floor to Sustainable Groundwater Development.
Thank you very
Is there
much.
a way to connect with this groundwater group? I don't see any
Yeah, we're
contact
presenting.
details or anything.
We're presenting just now. Ramon,
Yeah,
thank
hi,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Yes.
Aline, you want to do an introduction or can
No,
I?
no, you can go ahead. The time is
Okay,
very
yeah, I
limited. Yes.
think it
Thank you.
was a good bridge to our topic. Yeah, I just start to introduce our group, which consists of David Inman from Water Mission and myself. David, unfortunately, is not available to take part in this meeting today. But I try to bring all the information from our team as much as possible. Just a short introduction into the group. Can you show the next slide, please? So we have at least three priority areas. One is the groundwater management. This is maybe more represented by our organization. I'm from the Geological Survey in Germany. Groundwater management is something we are really specialized in. This is what we take care of in that group is understanding of the resource, the quality, quantity, use, recharge for sustainable management, borehole siting, well construction. And then the access. So first is to understand the resource, to explore the resource. The second one is the assessment of the resources and for rural livelihoods, rural development, climate resilience, and finally the management and the protection of the groundwater resource for reliable water supply. Next slide. So the second priority is professional water well drilling. So that means very much about training materials. But I could have put here another point, which is at the moment just starting is a study on drilling associations, and we see how drilling associations could be maybe supported to act as a key player to ensure like high quality drilling and sustainability of boreholes and also the linkage to governments. I think they have an important position, but it's really hard for them to sustain from the legal position, but also from the financial sustainability. So this is something we might add here the next time. And the third priority, next slide, please, is groundwater obstruction. This is more maybe the expertise is within water mission here, solar and hand pumps. This is also the area where at least the rural water supply network developed from. This is Stop the Rot is maybe the first what the network grew from that group here. So it's about improving the quality of hand pumps and today maybe also solar pumps. Then in this group is supporting scaling up of solar powered pumping water supply system. I think now it moves more from hand pumps to solar powered pumps and maintaining, updating RWSN and SCUT Foundation hand pump standards. So next slide, please. So what happened this year in 2025? It started with the early webinar series in May 2025. Groundwater, a key to climate resilient water solutions for rural communities was the title. And we choose that topic because this year was also from the World Water Day, the theme was also water and climate. So, and also for World Water Week. So we looked for a topic that fits to the overall Water Day. And just last week, we had the late webinar series about the drilling associations, professionalizing borehole drilling, the role of drilling associations. And that was maybe also the start of the study on drilling associations. Then we had conferences. There was the World Water Week. We could maybe also add here the AWASA Congress in I think it was February last year or this year. But then there was a World Water Week with a session hosted by Water Mission and the network with the title 3 Ways of Climate Finance Drives Us Toward SDG 6. And then we had the networking event that was also mentioned before. Like an update, we start with a study then on drilling associations. We finalize, or not really this year, we started already in 2024, 3 courses on groundwater management and drilling, at least 3 courses. One changed a bit here. One is on contract management, drilling contract management. One is on drilling supervising, borehole drilling supervising, and one is on groundwater management, and they will be finalized in January 2026. And then some activities in the Stop the Rot. There's a link here mentioned for the feedback from actual papers that has been published by Stop the Rot. Which is not mentioned here is, but it was mentioned before here, is some work on the support of the Africa Groundwater Network, which was also mandated by AMCAO, the African Ministerial Council on Water, to draft a strategic program on groundwater. And this program, this was finally advocated also by the network here, but more from the Secretariat than from us here as team managers. And this program finally was accepted also by its member states in September. That was, I think, a quite huge success from this policy space. And I think the network will be still engaged in supporting an implementation plan. That's for 2025. Next slide is then what are the plans for 2026? So yes, we will for sure again have some webinar series. The idea is to have some webinar series on the professional water well drilling and the construction, and then maybe later in the late webinar series on maintaining and rehabilitating of existing water wells. So these are the proposed topics, but you're also welcome to drop here in the chat box any other topics which would be interested. We are always interested to have new ideas here from the network, what could be of interest. Then we have next year the UN Water Conference in the Emirates, and we are thinking on maybe being engaged in the UN Water Conference. And finally, again, the World Water Week. I think the networking event was maybe was really good to have such a possibility where to meet people in person, to get to have the networking also in a physical meeting, and we could have something like that again, but maybe it makes sense not to reduce it to the sustainable groundwater development theme, maybe to have it for the network in total. And then there is the IRC conference in July in Kigali, Rwanda, and there's also a question mark if we from the groundwater development team will be engaged there or the network in total. So that's all from our theme. If there is any question.
Again, feel free to raise your hand or unmute if you want to ask your question or put it on the chat box.
Yeah, Charles, you raise your hand. We still are struggling to hear you. Maybe it's to increase the loudness of I think there is some sound from your microphone, but not that much. Or drop it again here in the chat box.
I think maybe the question of Charles is still on the issue of poor design and construction and quality. Maybe you want to reflect a little bit on this.
On borehole design and?
Poor design, construction, and quality of materials combined with replication of work, he says.
So for stop the rot, for the hand pumps, or this is quite a long mail here. So it's a very, I think, a very technical question, and maybe I'm not the right person to reply on that one. So I can't help you with that one. I'm more from the policy space, and so and I think you need something more technical on that. Sorry. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah, Luis, you're raising your hand.
All right, so thank you very much. Just want to confirm from where I am, often in terms of groundwater quality, community members do not see the possibility of groundwater being polluted in any way. So I'm trying to find out, is this something we can think about, or are we doing anything to ensure that we get community members sensitized to know that their actions or inactions can also affect groundwater? Because most at times for them, clean water is quality, that ends it. And they need a bit of education to understand that the water may be clean, very clear, but maybe the ecological content is high. So sometimes when you even support them, get a borehole or a well, for them to just wait for you to do even water quality test for them, they see it a bit of a problem because they think it's clean. Why do you want to tell them maybe you need any test again? And how they can appreciate that what they do on the surface of the earth can still have some impact on the quality of water beneath.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Where are you calling from, or where are you based, Louis?
I'm in Ghana, northern Ghana to be
Okay.
precise. Mm.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, it's an important question and important issue. So, and I think this is really difficult to manage it very often. So the responsibility is within the government very often, but when it comes to the local level, I think the capacity is quite low, and there's maybe no knowledge about the resource at all. And I think there is already something existing. I think what is helpful maybe is fact sheets, very simply explaining, at least for the siting of boreholes and the siting of sanitation services. I think this is, and there have been done a lot in the Susanna group, the sister network of this rural water supply network. So there's the network for sanitation and or Sustainable Sanitation Alliance, Susanna. So there is a group about groundwater management, and they developed already, I think, 10 years ago, and I was part of that group at the time, about the siting of boreholes and toilets, which is really crucial. And I think, yeah, it's finally, if they want to make sure that they have clean water, they have to manage it themselves, because the governments will be not able to make sure that they have the clean water. So then the key is, as you said, maybe to improve the capacity within the communities and their knowledge, and to help them with such fact sheets. Maybe is more material available in other networks and groups. And I think that could be maybe something we should maybe make more public. I think this is existing in the Susanna network, but it's sleeping there. I think it's not really well known and used, and maybe we can use it also to publish it here within the network, and make more publicity for it, and advocacy for the topic. Thank you for doing that, Louis. And yeah, would be maybe also a good topic for such a webinar theme, and to raise more the importance of such a topic. Another question from Abdul.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, all of you. I'm very happy to be part of this session. And I'm from Somalia. I work for this platform is very useful for me, because I originate a country where the climate risk is where water scarcity is high, and we always face floods. And right now, my district, or the place that I live, is facing one of the worst climate disaster, because of we missed the rainfall twice there, and we are facing those problems. So I'm very happy to have the, so we think we are going to, after getting the upcoming rainfall, we are planning to start rainwater harvesting. So how can network help us uh, to implement that project? Because uh, the the groundwater is very far, and the technology is not applicable. We can't find that kind of technology to expose groundwater, and it costs high. So how we can initiate a project that can save the lives and the livelihoods of our people, of my people.
Yeah, thank you, Abdul. Yeah, I think you are from a region which is suffering most from droughts on the continent, and African continent, maybe worldwide. I know there is a huge World Bank project. I think Daniel knows very much about it to support that region in with groundwater. Groundwater is at least the climate adaptation resource. Yeah, you are right. If there is some rainfall, you should make sure that you can there's as much available as possible. I think Hank here in the network is the right person to speak to when it comes to rainwater harvesting. Um, so it's definitely a challenge. I think they go, especially in the borderland Somalia, they go for with UNDP program, they go for deep groundwater to at least to make sure that there is some water supply for communities in the border or in the rangeland areas. But yeah, sure. Then, if something is possible also from communities, from decentralized management, then the rainwater harvesting is maybe the right technology to do so. And we had this topic in May here with the climate, the topic of groundwater and climate. And but I think this is a topic which will at least be always relevant because we all know that climate change will not be reduced the next years or decades. But I keep that in mind that there is still an urgent need for that topic. Fatima, your hand is raised.
Okay. Yeah, incidentally, I asked a question regarding groundwater before you started speaking. So I understood that the response came as in um, so regarding the feasibility of leveraging groundwater to provide municipalities or maybe whole communities with enough sustainable access to water supply, considering its often minimal treatment requirements. But then it also occurred to me that maybe groundwater could also be seen as a resource that could also solve simultaneously or address the energy scarcity issue. So I don't know whether the scope of these theme or this community. I think this is one of my first few times of joining this calls. So I just recently started postgraduate studies from Loughborough University, and they recommended that we join this community from the Water Engineering for Development program, MSc program. So I don't know whether your scope also involves the water energy nexus and whether groundwater will fit into that, because I'm actually looking at research opportunities in that field whereby maybe groundwater could also be leveraged as a source for simultaneously meeting the demands for water as well as also energy. So I'll be very much interested if there are discussions that are revolving around that in this field.
Yes, this is for sure very relevant for groundwater. To abstract the groundwater, you need energy. Unfortunately, David is not here now, so he could maybe give you a better reply to that one than me. But I think yeah, the future is solar pumping when it comes to rural water supply, and would be maybe also interesting to have. I know there is some course material by the Global Water Center, who an organization which is connected to Water Mission, based in the States, who developed already 3 courses and could be. I think they have already something on pumping technologies, but very technical. I don't know if you look maybe some for more like on the policy space or more the scientific space. But yeah, Derek is also here. Maybe Derek, could you maybe come in and give a reply to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. She actually broke up a little bit, so let me
Yeah,
do my
so just
best.
to introduce, Derek is a colleague of David's, and
Yeah,
he is
with
meant
full
to
permission.
take over some work here within the theme lead. And so I'm really happy that Derek could join us. Derek, please go ahead.
Yeah. So as Ramon said, the Global Water Center has training material, both policy and technical. So this is something that Water Mission does very frequently, is we design systems. I'm familiar with boreholes that are 400 meters deep, and we just have to have a bigger solar array and a bigger pump to do this sort of treatment. So I'd be happy to connect with you to answer your question more, Fatima.
Okay, thank you very much. So through which medium could we get some correspondence?
Yeah, I can private message you here in the app, and I will give you my email address.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Fatima, and thank you, Derek, for helping out. Isaac, you are having a question.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I am the country director for TN organization in Malawi. That's where I'm calling from. And we have an in-situ rainwater harvesting technology, which we promote through farmers. And we are working with more than 37,000 farmers who adopt this deep-bed farming. And this deep-bed farming converts their fields to a water harvesting facility. And usually I call it the largest low-cost facility ever constructed. Why I'm saying this is because the deep-bed farming is able to harvest more than 90% of the rainwater, allowing all that rainwater to infiltrate in the soil. Part of that is for agricultural productivity and more than doubling the yields, making farmers transit from poverty in food and income to better to do families. But my interest in this is the harvested rainwater that is allowed to go down to feed the aquifers, and the groundwater levels get up. We cannot talk of utilizing groundwater if we can't feed the water tables, because we will disturb the water balance, and eventually we may have dried or depleted groundwater, in which case most of the water wells will get dry. The streams get dry. If we allow water to run as surface runoff, then we have challenges of floods and pollution of water, sedimentation of water reservoirs, and so many other destruction of aquatic bio ecosystems in the water, and eventually the pollutants, will get over to the lakes and the oceans, and what bad effects that will have. So this technology controls erosion by cutting off completely surface runoff. So that is why in the morning I raised this issue, only that the response was that we are not the appropriate arm of the RWSN. Otherwise, I would prefer if an opportunity would be given to make a presentation on what we are promoting in Malawi And there was an opportunity in Uganda at Afkwasa. I was there. I presented alongside Henk, and the pavilion made a lot of sense because the technology that we have in Malawi here harvests rainwater and brings it down to the groundwater. So Henk was by my side talking about how to harvest that same water from the ground to be used by households through safe supply. So it made a lot of sense, and I believe that that's the only way we can bring this aspect of harvesting rainwater. Even in Somalia, my colleague was saying that in Somalia there are droughts. Yes, but the little we receive, we must harvest all of it and allow it to be useful to us. So I believe that if deep bed farming was given the opportunity to be presented to such forums as yours and AFWASA, even next year it is in Cameroon, if this support was given, the same presentation can be made in Cameroon, and then the people will understand that we must harvest rainwater, keep it in the soil, and then harvest it through groundwater extraction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Very interesting to hear about that project. It would be very interesting to maybe get some information on it. I would be also personally really interested in to know how that works, your project. If you say it's maybe one of the world largest projects in groundwater harvesting. So maybe it's also for the community very interesting to learn from that project, what works well, what maybe could be done better in another project approach. So this is something, I don't know if there's an evaluation one day planned on such a project. So could be of real
These
interest.
are fields of farmers. The farmers cultivate fields, and these fields, where there are so many hectares, are converted to deep bed farming. So it is the whole field under a farmer managed condition that harvests the rainwater. So that's why I'm saying it is the cheapest. It's a low cost because it requires, just working with the slopes of the land to make it a zero slope, and then all the rainwater will be harvested and stored in the soil. No need for costing it as if a reinforcement, whatever. It's not a tank. But the fields that farmers cultivate become storage facilities with the deep bed farming.
Did it need some initial investments and some I don't know, investment also from bankable project, or is it could it all be done without any external funds?
There is a little investment because we must train the farmers. So extension workers are involved, especially government extension workers, because the government of Malawi approved this technology in 2021. So we work with government staff, we work with other, partners, and we train the farmers to know how to cultivate or to transit from ridges or any other way of cultivation to deep bed farming. So as we do that, then that piece of land is now ready to harvest all the rainwater.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaac. I think I hand over now to the Sustainable Services Group.
Thank you, Ramon. Can I start now, or do you want to say something first, Aline?
No, you can go ahead. Sorry for taking a bit of your minutes.
No, that's fine. So hello, everybody. Thank you for staying till the last presentation. I'm going to have the hard job of keeping all of you focused after 1.5 hours of meetings, but after a very interesting discussion on aquifer recharge, which is also very, very timely, we're going to discuss on, and I'm going to present on behalf of the Sustainable Services theme about the soft side and what needs to happen and occur in order to keep services going after an initial investment. So my name is Analia Saker, and I'm a water and sanitation technical lead. I work for a consultancy company called Agua Consult, and I'm based in Bogota, Colombia. But I don't work on this alone. I have two other colleagues, which are Tara Michaels, who works for Greta, and Mohamed Farhoui, who is from Morocco and works for the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water. If you move to the next slide, please, Batma. So, in general, what are the priorities of our thematic area? As I said, we focused on the soft side of water supply, of rural water supply. So we discussed about institutional system strengthening, what lessons exist currently to reinforce local and national systems. Then we focused on also on professionalizing rural water service provision, on what has worked for different management models, professional development practices, and the enabling systems to allow for the professionalization of service providers. Then all other of our priorities, which is also one of them that is coming now into the agenda more, is the topic on regulation, which is part of the system, which is how to engage with regulators and regulated, in this case, the service provider, to share experiences of what's worked and identify good practices for balancing the economic, social, and political and environmental priorities for water service provisions. In this case, if regulation for water supply has been rolled out in most of the countries for urban areas. Not much has happened yet in the rural arena, but there are some good experiences. So that's other of our priorities, and it's one of the things that we would like to focus as well. Then also, and very importantly, the financing side of rural water service provision. From the questions of the registration that came to us today, we saw that this was one of the biggest worries, how to finance water supply in rural areas. It's an issue both in urban and rural areas, but it's harder to make the economic case for rural areas because of the socioeconomic conditions and the contextual conditions as well of rural water supplies, which is more of a dispersed nature, and making the case for economies of scale is a little bit more difficult. So that's also one of our priorities for the sustainable services team. And finally, as it has been discussed in all the other teams, how to include climate resilience into service delivery, which is important in many dimensions now that we're seeing the world transform into a country into a reality in which we're first facing much more water scarcity, droughts, but also floods, and the implication that has for rural service provision, not only on the technical side, but on the management side. The reason why we have highlighted professionalization and financing is because we were focused last year more on professionalization. This year we would like to focus more on financing. But the idea is that whenever we find useful resources, or whenever we have opportunity also in the other topics, we would like to also use this channel to disseminate and to start discussions on all of these topics that are currently our priorities. But we're open to from the audience to hear if there are any other items that would be interesting to include here, or that would be important and critical for ensuring that services are sustainable. If you move to the next slide, Batemam. So here I'm highlighting a bit of what we did this year. We had a very interesting webinar on what drives rural water, rural drinking performance in rural areas. And this was based on the work that we had previously done with Real Water, both the Rural Water Supply Network as well as Agua Consult. But this was ideally to start a discussion. And what we wanted to do was to start a discussion on those models that are being promoted for the rural landscape in terms of water. Many times we keep hearing the discussion of what's the best model, what works best, and we hear also many different entities promoting several models, saying this model works better because all of these other models have failed. What we wanted to explore in this webinar was that there is a lot of discussion around what doesn't work and what hasn't worked in the past, if it's community management has failed, if now we should be looking at rural water in a more of an enterprise way. And what we wanted to explore really was that, and we did a scientific research on this, was that the model itself is not important, is some of the practices and the conditions that are behind these models. And this was later explored a bit in a follow-up blog that we did. But what was interesting on these webinars that we brought case studies from different countries in which different models had been implemented successfully. So we had the case study of Cambodia, in which it's one of the few countries in the world that has a completely privately owned and operated system for rural areas, which is working relatively well. And we also had the case study of Peru, in which are now integrating community-based management into the service delivery landscape. And in Peru, this is the model that it's working because it has it's very traditional, and it's for this context, that's the model that works, and no other model would work for the Peruvian context. So we also had the case study of Senegal, in which there were we explored public-private partnerships, and we also had the case study of Morocco, in which the government takes over most of the provision in rural areas. So we demonstrated that it's not the model itself, and that we shouldn't be staying and stuck at the discussion of we need to reform our systems or our policy and laws in order to improve. We need to first start and see what's not working and how to improve our current system. So it was a pretty interesting discussion, and I'm sure that some people might think differently. But you can see what we argumented and what our argument was in this blog that we leave here, and you can also access this webinar. The discussion was quite interesting. So moving from that, if you go to the next slide, Batima, one of the key practices that we saw and that was important for service provision was, and this is not surprising, was the financing side, but more than the financing side per se, was the financial support received by the local governments or internal structures within service providers. So that was one of the key findings from that study that we conducted. And also the value of the tariff. So we were a little bit inspired on that. And with the new scenario in which the aid money is declining, and with this new landscape that we have, we were thinking of focusing this year on innovative finance mechanisms for rural water supply. We know that this is a topic that's been highlighted over and over, how to make the rural water then a subsector appealing to investors, appealing for not only the government but other sources of financing, and that's something that we would like to explore this year. What the challenges are in the rural water subsector. Some of those challenges are shared with other sectors, such as the electricity and energy and power and education. However, Our sector has its own challenges, and that's also something that we would like to explore in this year, and next year. And we would also like to understand what the comparisons are to the urban subsector. Why is it different, and what challenges are from the rural subsector specifically. We would like to explore as well what has worked, what is scalable, and what has not worked, and why. And the reason why we want to do that is because we have seen some case studies of programs that have worked, but usually these are in a very small scale, and it's difficult to roll them out to the whole country. And we want to understand why and what can be done to overcome that situation. We would like to focus on microloans, concessional finance, and blended finance, and when can these be applied depending on the maturity of the sector and the service provider. And we would like to channel this by a webinar and a set of online resources of case studies, blogs, and academic resources to support this discussion. And finally, we would also like to bring this up in the All Systems Connect conference in Kigali, which we will be attending. So I'll leave it there, and I'll Tara, if you would like to complement.
I think you covered it pretty well, but I'm happy to jump in and answer questions. I know the financing question is big, and it's a bit challenging to find good ways to share about it. But I think there's a lot of really interesting things out there that I'm realizing not everybody is really aware of. So I think it's about bringing inspiration to everybody on the different topics. So happy for questions, happy for feedback, suggestions, ideas of things that you even see working or not working. We're happy to consider them all.
Please, as before, feel free to put your questions on the chat box, or you can raise your hand to voice your question.
Yeah, for now, I see a comment from Susan Dundon saying that results-based financing might be worth included for plans for 2026, and you're right, Susan. Yeah, but it's definitely something that we were thinking about. More on the how to make this financing appealing rather than a source of funding, but of course it's something that will be discussed. James?
Yeah, thanks, Amelia. I had one question on the from the webinar on this. There's a statement you made was part of the discussion at the webinar. The question of, is it the model or its application? What matters most? What was the, I mean, in summary, the conclusion to that debate?
I can start. There I can complement. So we did a study in Ghana in which we evaluated 3 management models, right? It was public supply, public utility via CWSA. We evaluated WSMTs, which are community-based organizations, and we also evaluated safe water enterprises, which are usually companies funded by big donors outside, but in the country they have some sort of a business model, but part of their functioning is subsidized. It's not completely private. So we evaluated these 3 options, and what we found is that the differences in terms of performance, both operational and in terms of reliability, water quality, and functionality aspects, we found that the differences within the models were negligible, which was interesting because I was expecting that the differences would be that the 2 models, the private one and the public utility one, would completely outperform community-based management. And what we saw is that once we controlled for some factors, which were the poverty, size of the population they were covering, we didn't find many differences other than for water quality. And in water quality, we were focusing on chlorine levels. So that was interesting for us. And that was the one thing that started the discussion. Once we looked at the practices that were behind good performance, we understood that in those cases in which, for example, community-based organizations were supported, there was a strong district authority in which there were audits being undertaken, and in which these conditions were met. Those were performing at exactly the same level as the two other models. So our conclusion from that study is that if WSMPs, the community-based organizations, are not performing better at the moment, it's because they have been deprioritized. And currently, the government is prioritizing CWSA, which is the rural public utility, and some donors are prioritizing safe water enterprises. So it's very difficult to outperform the others if you're not receiving any support. So that was our conclusion from that study. This was based on Ghana, but that's what we wanted to explore in the webinar as well. There are many countries in which each of these models are working. So yeah.
So in summary, it's not the model, it's the application and the supporting mechanisms around the application.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, in the webinar, we talked about Cambodia as well. And we did an evaluation within Cambodia as well, not so long ago, where we compared community, public, and private water enterprises. Community enterprises were performing lower, or community-based water utilities, but the reality is they have a different regulatory and enabling environment. And what was interesting is that both the public and the private enterprises were basically performing more or less similarly, and they have the same regulatory and financing enabling environment. So when you start holding other factors under a control, you get very, very similar results in our experiences as well.
Yeah, and maybe we as a sector spend too much time in having the discussion of which model is the best one, rather than improving what's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And I think the questions about regulatory environment are really big. I've been working in Southeast Asia on this on quite a lot of levels, really, really focused on the regulatory environment and financing mechanisms such as water funds, how they can be used and mobilized in different ways. And I mean, the idea of a water fund is to kind of structure financing in a more organized way. So this is something that's really interesting looking forward, and collaborating at the regulatory level. I think this is something where we definitely should and can spend more time sharing the lessons learned on what could work in different locations. There's no one size fits all, but finding things that can work in different contexts given the situation of the local suppliers.
Hank?
Yes, I was curious if you know the model of supporting self-supply. So supporting self-supply is the combination of family-owned systems and a focus and a family that shares water with the neighbors and the focus on productive uses. Do you know examples that you have come across in your studies? And what are your experiences with that model?
Yeah, and when you say productive uses, how productive are you thinking? Like agriculture productive, industry productive?
Yeah, agriculture. Well, basically any activities that generates income. It can be car washing, it can be mostly it's irrigation or livestock, but it can be fish, it can be other income generating. Because one of the problems we see with community systems that are only for domestic use is that it does not generate income. And that is part of the problem, the lack of funds for maintenance and repairs. And we see if water is used for multiple uses, like irrigation, livestock, etc., there is income that can then pay for the maintenance of the pump.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe I'll jump in, and Analia, feel free to complement. Actually, it's interesting you pose that question right after talking about Cambodia, because essentially what has happened in Cambodia is it has turned into all these incredible tiny private water suppliers, but they pretty much started out as a person who was a bit of an entrepreneur who was providing water and maybe for their own business, and then suddenly neighbors started requesting, and it just kind of grew like wildfire. And then when the enabling environment to protect those businesses was put in place, so they were given 20-year licenses on a very specific point, the number of those water suppliers doubled in the next 10 years after that was placed. So I see it as something that was born out of not just drinking water, but in fact the demand for industry as well. And I use the word industry lightly. It was local businesses. And just now I'm actually having this discussion actively in Myanmar, where public services are a bit challenging. They are existing, but they're challenging. And actually, one of the things that's really surprised us in the dry zone, not so far from the earthquake affected zones, is that there's a huge amount of industry and a huge amount of women-led businesses that are very reliant on these resources and begging for expansion. And we're trying to find, as we speak, these models to put in place so that these small entrepreneurs who are sometimes already supplying, sometimes community-based, again, the model doesn't matter. How can we support them to expand, and in particular harness the economic viability of the systems, and really put in place the resources for these very, very small businesses, which in many cases are a household with a business, but really treat them that way. We really build into the business models that we work on at GRET in particular. We treat household supply and business supply and count them completely separately, and we build them separately in our business models, because the ones that have more business connections are more successful. They're able to charge a bit more. It helps create some financial sustainability. So I think bringing out some of these models and the way that it's working, and the different types of entities that are out there that are supporting them, like Stone Family Foundation, water.org, and the Water Equity Fund, and just showing how it's being done in different ways, I think could be a real inspiration for other businesses. Because it's tricky, because we talked about it earlier as well. Water is a human right, and we have to fundamentally build all of our water systems to achieve that goal first. But financially, you can achieve a lot of sustainability with these economic points, and therefore we should consider both. Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thanks for the answer.
Sure.
I think we're reaching the end of the meeting. I don't know, Aline, if we should take more questions, or if you want to close.
I think we can move on to the closing. So I'd like to invite Dr. James to give us the closing remarks.
I'm happy to. Yeah. Thank you, colleagues. It's always exciting conversations. We can spend the next 3 hours, 5 hours, just sharing on these things. But I think we have different forums, the thematic working groups, the webinars to sort of advance the conversation. Thank you so much for staying here, taking your time to be part of this annual reflection. So many things to pick. I have just picked a few that probably I can highlight in my closing remarks. The value of strategic partnership with Alliance for Rural Electrification. I think that would be a useful interesting partnership. The water sector have a lot to learn from the electricity, particularly around, distributed systems. Electricity has done quite well in advancing distributed systems to bridge the access gap. So I think there's a lot you can learn from that. How do we sort of continue advancing distributed system in line with the conversations around self-supply? The private sector role, electricity are doing quite much better in terms of the level of private sector engagement in service delivery to strengthen sustainability. I think that's something we can pick on. But there's a good discussion on the cost of poor design and limited, design for post-construction maintenance. Yeah. The question was asked, what was the actual dollar value? Even if you don't have it, the exact dollar value, but it's significant. Hopefully we'll be able to put figures to that, but it's still a significant issue affecting raw water supply, the cost of poor designs. I like there was a phrase when in the Groundwater Working Group on no drop of water should flow into the sea without serving the interest of man. And I would add planet as well. We need, water for the planet as well. I think that's a good, especially for rural areas. It's an integrated economy. Water for, agriculture, water for domestic supply. So the more we are able to keep a lot of the water in the landscape, it regenerates the ecosystem, the soil. So a lot of investments is needed in, conservation, increasing recharge and all that. And lastly, the conversation which we've just concluded with Tara and earlier, it's not about the model. It's more about the application and the supporting systems that we put on whichever model is found to be fit for which particular context. There are places where community-driven model is the perfect solution with the right level of support, and there are contexts where it just can't work. There are contexts where private sector models will add the highest value. So the effort should be put more on, how do you put sufficient supporting mechanisms for the model? Those are a few things that I've picked through the conversations. I appreciate your time. I want to wish you a lovely evening, lovely day, lovely morning. Thank you for joining this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Just a quick reminder that the presentations and the recording will be available on our website, and we'll have a short survey now at the end. Please fill out so that we can improve next editions of this meeting. And the next slide, next week, Tuesday, we'll have the final webinar of this series, Rapid Corrosion of End Pumps. Can we finally address this issue? So this is organized by the Stop the Rot project. So we would really appreciate if you can engage and register for this webinar as well as we close our series. But for today, we are closing now the annual meeting. We hope you have learned a thing or two, and we look forward to see you on our various channels. Thank you so much, James, and all the team leaders that have presented today. And thank you all for sticking with us through the 2 hours. We really, really appreciate it. And a big hand clap to all of you. Thank you. And we sign off.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting.
Thank you.